when this particular OEM gave their statement of work to the CM, they said, look, we want you to procure the boards as well. Here's the Gerbers, all that. Get the boards made. And on the statement of work, the material selection for the boards, and I quote, I'm not exaggerating, down and dirty FR4, nothing special.
Wow. We're back, the Decode Podcast. We are here, and our guest today is Mr. Mike Konrad. You may notice the tropical foliage behind him. Oh, look at that. Sean just pulls out the reluctant entrepreneur.
Oh,
well
are we
played.
recording? Are we?
Sean, every time you show that book, it costs me $20. So come on, be kind. Be kind. Only show it 12 more times.
Okay.
Oh, welcome,
I got a
Mike.
budget, man.
And
Thank you.
as I alluded, you are not in your home court, although you'd probably like that to be your home court. Tell us a little bit about where Daniel and you are this week and what you've been doing. But before you do, I have to put a disclaimer that Sean is currently infected with coronavirus, and that's why he looks like that. He is not in a hostage situation. He's fine. No help needed.
You can tell by his hair. Usually when he's healthy, that hair is standing straight up.
Straight up,
the biggest
yeah.
indication.
Well, I heard a rumor that alcohol prevents COVID. So just in case it transfers through, electrons.
Did you ever hear that one guy? Remember when the old COVID would take away your taste buds and stuff like that? So he would drink a beer every hour to make sure he could still taste.
You got to be safe. I guess.
Doing my COVID check.
It's medical.
Science.
It's medical. Yes, it's a litmus test. Daniel and I are in on the Big Island of Hawaii for the SMTA this is a long one. Pan-Pacific Strategic Electronics Symposium, more affectionately known as PanPac. PanPac is an annual event. It takes place on some Hawaiian island. We bebop around the islands every year. Last year we were on Maui. This year we're on the Big Island. In years past, we've been on Oahu. We've been on Kauai. Next year we'll be back to Maui. Here today, gone to Maui. Bada bing. But I am totally privileged and blessed to be the chair of this conference. So myself and our technical committee curate the conference. And as Daniel may or may not attest, we haven't coordinated this yet, but we like to call it the Conference of Interesting Things because it's not your typical SMTA conference. All the SMTA conferences are amazing, but this one is not like a theme. It's not wafer level. It's not cleaning and coding. It's not harsh environment. It's not UHDI. It's everything. We had a plenary presentation on Monday on the status of sea ice in the Arctic. Nothing to do with electronics, but it's interesting nonetheless. It really is the Conference of Interesting Things. If you want to learn how to solve voiding, we're not your conference. If you want to learn what's going on in the next 5 to 10 years in our industry, from a strategy standpoint, a strategic standpoint, it's an amazing conference. I mean, your mind is just blown every day.
Were they using the sea ice to clean circuit boards instead of dry ice?
I wish. Maybe I'd care more about global warming.
What's your opinion on that? What's your opinion on that dry ice stuff? Because I see all the Chinese videos and it looks like it cleans the flux off the board. But where does it go?
Well, no. What it's doing is it's freezing. Water, whether it's frozen or liquid or gas, is polar, and many of the residues on a board are non-polar, which polar simply means soluble in water, hydrophilic. Non-polar is hydrophobic, not soluble in water. You can't change the properties of that. So what this kind of dry ice thing does is it kind of freezes the contaminants, doesn't solubilize them, and physically knocks them off the board. So, I mean, it's impressive to watch. But from an ionic standpoint, we've done tests after steam cleaning or dry ice cleaning and things like that. And yeah, I mean, the chunks it knocks off contain ions, conductive ions. So the ionic count on the board is lower, but it's not gone. The only way to really get a board to zero, or as near zero as possible in terms of ionic content, is to solubilize it. Hans's law of solubility, like attracts like. So you need a chemical that's capable of solubilizing nonpolar hydrophobic materials, because water alone is not going to do it.
You think the energy from a system like that's required to get good results and solubilize all the flux and whatever else?
Yeah, energy is always a requirement. It's temperature to clean anything, whether it's dishes at home or circuit assemblies. You need energy, you need time, you need heat, and you need contact. And the contact contains some of that energy. You need diffusion patterns if you want to really go down the rabbit hole. You need fluid particle size. All those things are players, but energy, time, and heat are the primary ingredients, and then each one has a little subset of requirements below that.
It's funny. It reminds me of in circuit board manufacturing in the late 90s, early 2000s, they switched over to black hole technology, they call it. We use shadow from McDermott, so we called it the shadow process. But
is that for plating, or what part of the process is
that? It's actually to make it so that way you can plate the holes. Okay. So what's weird about it is the first tank is called a cleaner conditioner tank that you run it through. And that's just to make the board a positive charge. And that's so that way when you put your shadow, go through the shadow bath, which is a negative, the graphite bonds to it. That's it. That's the only reason. Like, it's just the charge. So when you talked about this polar,
it's like a plating process.
Exactly, almost, but it's not. It's just conductive, making the holes being conductive, and then there's like this fixer stuff that kind of glues it in there, so that way it doesn't get erased as you go through the rest of the fab process. But when you're talking about that positive, negative, polar, non-polarized, I know it's a little different because you're talking about soluble versus not soluble, but it just reminded me of that process, where the whole purpose of it is just to make it like the opposite of what you're trying to remove.
Leave it to Sean to get from polar ice to circuit board fab. I don't know how you always do. I wish I was that good at like segueing into stencils, because it's so good.
Segway king. Yeah, you got to wear another crown and a cape. The Segway king. Yeah, you're
the
that.
Segway king.
Maybe I want to ride around on a Segway.
I'm so concerned that he just gave me a compliment right now. It's so out of par for him lately.
No, it's going to come back to bite you later. You know that.
Something's going on with that. He was like setting up
the bottom will fall out.
He was just setting up a mean joke or something right there.
No, there's no mean joke there. You definitely almost look like you're on death's bed. So I want your last memory of me to be positive.
It wouldn't have been if we ended the phone call last night or the text message last night. How we did. Mike, the COVID hit me, and then I just blew up on these two guys. It was unbelievable. It was wild.
Well, that happens, Sean. If you have COVID, you get a pass. There you go.
You get a
pass.
Thank you.
They were champs about it.
I want to bring it back to PanPac real quick. I understand this is the 30th year, and I
do too. I never want to leave.
Yeah, right. I'm not sure if Mike's been there all 30 years, but I know for certain this isn't his first time. Whereas Daniel, this is your first time. Now, I've been kind of living vicariously through you, and you've been, gracious enough to provide updates. Definitely not bragging the whole week, but tell us a little bit about your perspective and how your first time experience was, having experienced, a bunch of other expos this year. Some of them big, some of them small. What's different about this one? Why would somebody consider it from your point of view?
So it's a very intimate setting. I mean, not just the fact that it's in Hawaii and it's beautiful and awesome, but part of being here means that there's not a whole lot of places for everyone to go. It's just not a sprawling metropolis with all kinds of options. So what that ends up resulting in is you get all these opportunities for one-on-one connections with pretty much all the different conference attendees. Basically every single person I wanted to get some FaceTime with this week, I was able to at different times, multiple times usually. And I think that's probably going to be the biggest lasting impact of going to a conference like this, is being able to draw on these connections that I've made throughout the next year. That's a similarity to the other conferences we've been to over the past year, right? I know every single one, it's been at least a couple of technical presentations that then get brought back up in different times when we're talking about assembly challenges and such. And
sure, long after the sunburn is gone, those relationships are still there, right?
Yep. And I think that's probably the biggest value of this thing. It'll continue to pay dividends.
What was your favorite technical presentation then?
You try, like, while we're talking to Mike, his was my favorite. No, he.
I was going to make a hand gesture that would have been completely inappropriate, so I'll keep my hands out of camera view. But
I will say, I mean, I'll give Mike the opportunity to kind of wax poetically on his presentation if you'd like, because the idea that a 5% drift when a data sheet might even suggest that percentage is perfectly fine within spec. What can actually happen if you're trying to follow a no clean process and you see some drift in your reflow oven? Even a small percentage can have kind of more catastrophic effects than you might think.
So new fear unlocked.
Yeah, it was a fearful presentation. Without dwelling on it, it was basically people rely on golden boards. You run a golden board, you qualify a process, everything is perfect. Your underwear is clean. You ironed your socks. You went to confession. There's no dirty thoughts in your head. Everything is perfect, absolutely perfect. And the board comes out stellar. So you're like, high five, man. Boom, boom. Let's practice. Let's celebrate. And then no one ever checks after that. They just said, no, they just run it this way. We've already proven it. And
then the real world starts, right?
Well, yeah, we started noticing, we build cleaners, obviously. So we've been doing it for 34 years. So we've got a lot of feedback from customers over the 3.5 decades that we've been doing this. And I always wondered, like, why does some no cleans, the same brand, the same alloy, why does some no cleans just come out stellar clean and others are, cleanliness fails? It's the same, same material. What's going on? So we had an idea that the only thing that can really affect cleanliness, ionic cleanliness of a no clean, is the reflow process, because the deal we made with no clean was we'll put all the horrible things, all the activators, all the bad actors on a board. And then during the reflow process, the bad actors would be volatilized or encapsulated, rendering them inert. That's the deal. I mean, it's not like you can't build a flux that's not harmful. You can build a flux that's harmful after the fact, after it does its good job, if you can mitigate the harmfulness of it. So our thought was, must be something in the reflow process. So we ran a DOE with our partners at Foresight, and we took some Umpire 2 boards, which are test coupon boards. We populated them with popular components, QFNs and BGAs and other things. And we ran a very common, very popular SAC 305 no clean paste. And this is not slagging the paste at all. And we looked at what's the minimum recommended peak reflow temperature. It happened to be 230 degrees C. So we said, okay, let's run 4 boards with perfect 230 degrees C peak reflow temperature. And all the other parameters were there. Time above liquidus, all that stuff was within spec. We just reduced the peak reflow temperature. Well, we ran it at 100% of recommended. And then we ran 4 other assemblies, identical, same material, same everything. And we lowered the peak reflow temperature by 2%. And then we ran some more and we lowered it by 4%. And then we ran another 4. So it was 4 groups of 4, where we brought it down to 95%. of peak reflow temperature. And then we subjected them all 16 assemblies, to the IPC J standard 001J's requirement for objective evidence, which is a 168-hour SIR test under heat and humidity and electrical bias. And the boards that we ran at 100% of the recommended temperature, stellar, out of the ballpark. Like SIR numbers were amazing. Those would not be considered dirty. So they'll probably be reliable. In terms of contamination is concerned, they'll be reliable. The 2% drift, just 2% drift, the entire several channels of lines on the SIR graph lowered. Still a pass, but much closer to the pass-fail line of 1 times 10 to the 8. The 94% kissed the fail line.
96, right? The 4% off, which would be 96%.
Yeah, 4%
right?
off, 96% of recommended temperature. Technically failed because it hit the red line, but it was a marginal fail. The 95%, every channel we measured was well below that red line of 1 times 10 to the 8. Well below. It was an unqualified fail. 5%. And then we said, okay, you do a DOE, you have a hypothesis, you come to a conclusion, and then you iterate. Like, well, how else can we measure it to validate that, right? So we subjected it to ion chromatography. And ion chromatography will not only measure the volume of contamination, it'll identify the species of contamination. Across the board, calcium ions, lithium, sodium, weak organic acids. The difference between 100% recommended peak reflow temperature and 95 was an extra 560% increase in detectable contamination, 600% increase, 150% increase. Pretty much every category of detectable contamination was markedly higher at that 5% drift. So it's like, okay, yeah, now I understand why some boards pass and some boards fail. Now, what causes it to fail? Is it a catastrophic event? No, it's absolutely minor changes. You run a reflow oven for a certain amount of time, the belts get a little looser. The encoders go a little out of whack. People will make slight adjustments to reflow belt speed for line balancing purposes. Hey,
your thermal
we
paste
can't have
on your solid state relays might not be as effective anymore, right? Like there's a whole number
so
of things.
They're always making little compromises. The last time the vents were changed, how many vents were added? How many more machines with ventilation systems did they add? Is that reducing or do they put in new blowers that are sucking all the heat out of the machine? When you run a golden board, you run one board. When you then get the golden board and you duplicate the parameters, there's 30 boards in the machine. If it's a big machine, there might be 30 boards in the machine. That affects the thermal mass, right? And it's going to react differently. You don't test 30 golden boards in a row. You test one, generally. So the point is, lots of little things can change. If that board were cleaned after reflow, that 5% drift, which clearly didn't affect solder integrity at all, it'd be nothing. It'd be absolutely nothing. It's like, okay, you can drift a little bit. You don't have to worry about it. But if you're going to run no clean and you're not going to clean, you better have a good, as IPC requires, a good process monitoring tool, which is a ROSE tester, to do periodic tests throughout the day to make sure that you're not getting a spike in contamination, because a little bit of difference in belt speed or difference in temperature will totally change the detectable amount of contamination. And we verified it with ion chromatography, we verified it with SIR, we verified it with ROSE testing. It's all across the board. It's undeniable. And that was the point we were trying to make.
And I guess the root cause of that is lower consumption of available flux, or not as efficient activation of flux due to the lower temperature?
Well, it didn't volatilize all of it because it didn't hit the right temperature for the right amount of time. And it didn't encapsulate all of it. So the bad actors were left causing trouble on the board. It's like we didn't lock them in jail and we didn't get rid of them. They're still there. And when that ionic residue is combined with an electrical bias and moisture. Right behind me, a lot of moisture in the air. It's a bit humid. Today, if you had
in the ocean too, not just the air.
Yes, we have a whole ocean full of moisture. But this environment that I'm sitting in right now would be ideal for electrochemical migration if there was the ingredients for it. We've got 2 of the 3, but you need all 3. We've got an electrical bias. We have moisture. If we also have ionic residue, you're going to get a problem. And that's where that's coming from. So our only point is, look, if you're not going to clean, cool. Test regularly. If you are going to run a no clean and clean it, you're fine. I mean, obviously, still test is required.
Sean and I have the same question, so I'm going to cut in and say it first. Did your DOE include any tests to the positive side of 100%?
No.
Was I right, Bubba?
No, we didn't care about that. We know that, I mean, there could be 25 other things that go wrong, or 120 other things that go wrong if you cook the board too much. But that probably, I mean, you actually could polymerize any residues to make them impossible to remove, even if you're running a cleaning process. If you cook them on too long, you might not be able to solubilize them in a cleaning process, which could be yucky, cosmetically yucky. But and there's probably, that's a technical term, Sean, technical term. And
hey, you're speaking my language. When you said polymize or whatever you said, I was lost, and then you said yucky. I'm with you now.
Yucky, it's yucky. And there's probably solder integrity things. There's probably, it might land on voiding, it might land on tombstoning, it might land on all these crazy things that could happen. I'm not an expert on reflow defects, but other than contamination. But no, we didn't go the other end. We just knew that our suspicion was, if we lower the temperature, we're going to see a bunch of residue. And our only surprise, the surprise was not that we were right. The surprise was that it didn't take much. It just took just took a few percent.
Well,
like,
one
oh
of the
my
things,
God.
One of the things I've noticed from these conferences, as much as I love them, is they sure put the fear of God in you, because you start to hear all these different conditions that are basically perfectly normal that all contribute to defects later on. Some of the presentations this week were on SAC 305 and how brittle it can be, or the aging, the condition of the components or the board or the assembly, if it's been aged, if it's the flux residue that Terry Munson from Foresight brought up in his presentation that was there, that led to all kinds of crazy fallouts down the road. Like, basically every single part of everything we do when we're assembling a product has just risk everywhere you look, all the way along through it. And I, talking with a few people, it feels like it's a miracle that any good assemblies ever even get out the door with all the potential there is for defects along the way. So it just really reinforces, when you come to an event like this, that you can't take stuff for granted. You've got to be testing, you've got to be validating your processes, especially like Sean and I, in a high mix environment. If you don't just have to worry about perfecting one product over time, but you have to perfect those processes so that you get good results across a high mix of products, it can be pretty daunting.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that, because I don't know how a board ends up. I don't know why this works every time I pick it up, because it is such a complex process from semiconductor manufacturing with trillions of transistors on a wafer, trillions, and the
nanometers apart from each other.
Exactly, and those processes, and then board design and board fabrication, and then component design, component fabrication, and then the assembly process, which has its own peculiarities. It's a minefield of things that will kill you, that will kill your product. To me, it's overwhelming to think about. Somehow, what comes out the other end overwhelmingly is a product that works with with, 800,000 different steps, any of which done wrong could kill it. And it comes out for, all of that comes out for, under $1,000. And in some cases, consumer stuff under $20.
Yeah.
And it's still subjected to all these tests. It amazes me. It overwhelms me, the complexity of our industry.
Mike, I got a customer I've probably done 80,000 boards in 4 years for. Same one. They want me to conformal coat it, which I do. But I can't wash it. It's got a Bluetooth chip on it, and it's got this switch on it, and it can't get washed. What do you do?
So it's no clean, I assume?
Yeah. I mean, I don't, because like after I went to Star, and after these guys went to Dallas without me for the conformal coating SMTA event.
He's still upset about that. He's holding it against him.
He's as salty as this water we've been swimming in.
I'm working on just
let it go, Sean. Let it go.
But I just realized, some people, like, I forget who it was, but they were saying like you're basically just creating a greenhouse for that dendritic growth to just happen without washing.
So I was hired several years ago. I got this random call. I'm sitting in my office. I got this random call, and it was an attorney. And of course, guard went up. Like, why is an attorney calling me? And he goes, "Are you Mike Konrad?" I'm like, "Yeah, you called me.
Who's asking?"
Yeah. And I wanted to go, it depends who's asking. But I'm like, "Yeah, I'm Mike Konrad." He goes, "Well, I'm an attorney." And I'm like, "Oh, man." That's not quite what I said, but to that effect. And he explained that he's been hired to represent a contract manufacturer in a civil litigation matter. They were being sued by an OEM that they were doing work for basically malpractice. And it had to do with electrochemical migration and specifically CAF, conductive anodic filament, which is a part of ECM. And he goes,
that's
have done
internal,
research on
though,
you.
right? It's on the
it's
internal layers.
It's within the layers. It's subterranean ECM. So it's dendrites.
You're not
which
cleaning
grow the
that
other
away.
direction.
Yeah.
You can't clean that away. There are ways to prevent it, but not after the fact, right? You can't clean your way out of that at all. But they also had surface level dendritic growth and corrosion and all that. They had messed up process. And so they wanted me to help represent, defend the contract manufacturer. But their issue, to your point, Sean, was they cleaned the boards because they were told to. That was the statement of work. But they cleaned it in a water-based inline cleaner. Nothing wrong with an inline cleaner, but it was just water. Just water. So there was no chemistry. They ran water-soluble flux. So, okay, well, water will remove water-soluble flux in the best of cases. But what else is on the board? And you've heard me say this 1,000 times. I've almost heard you on other shows mock me about this statement. But
the Cheeto fingers, the usual suspects. Yeah.
If you don't remove the flux, you don't remove anything.
Anything.
It's become this like this point of ridicule. But I love it. I own it. But but it's true. They didn't. They removed all the polar, all the hydrophilic, all the water soluble material, but anything that was on the board, from board fab to component fab to people to dirty Cheeto fingers, all that, stayed on the board. But they thought that was enough. Okay. And then it was a multi-layer board. The board ran on a battery, and it was going to be buried in the ground. That's all I'm allowed to say. It's going to be buried in the ground. It had a radio transmitter that would transmit data to a receiver nearby, above ground, connected to a power source. So they had a battery that was expected to last 10 years.
Wow.
After 3 months, batteries all started failing. And it's like, oops. So long story short, we did all the studies, and, we hired experts in forensic analysis and cross sections and all this stuff. And the problem was that they didn't conformal coat the boards. They potted the boards. So they put the boards in this plastic box. They filled it with silicone, black silicone, and they put it in the ground. They did no baking prior to reflow. They did no good cleaning prior to reflow. And just before they potted it, they added an antenna to the board, which had this big metal post in it and big mass of copper or something. And they put it on with no clean because they knew they weren't going to be able to clean it. And they had it's like they had a cousin in the solder business. They just poured flux on this top side. And they didn't properly activate it because it was hand soldered. They didn't properly activate it. So all the bad actors were left to play and commit crimes on the board, which they did. But they thought, well, you know what? We're going to make the ultimate insurance policy. We're going to pot the board. So nothing bad can get in. And that was true. Nothing bad could get in.
Nothing bad.
What did
can
they
get
do?
Out.
Yeah. Nothing bad can get out. They took all the sins of the process, all the non-polar contaminants, all the flux improperly activated, all the fingerprints and whatever, Dorito fingers, and they
eternalized them.
Yeah. So they basically created this jail with the worst of the worst criminals, and they rioted internally, and they tore apart the jail. They threw their mattresses out the window. They burned the place down, and their boards all failed, and they failed very subtly. It wasn't like a giant explosion. They failed by having a little extra.
Drain the battery.
Current leakage.
Current leakage. And it caused a 10-year battery to last 3 months.
Wow.
And the problem was that it all could have been mitigated, but the CM was doing exactly what they were told. And the CM ended up writing a letter to him and said, you know what? Best practices is we clean, we bake, and then we coat. That's best practice for coating. And the OEM went, no, we don't have time for that. Just coat it, or pot it in this case. So they thought, okay, you know what, CYA, we have an email that says just do it. But when it went south, they got sued because what the OEM said was, you should have known better. If we were wrong in our statement of work, you should have told us. And they said, we did tell you. And they said, no, you should have convinced us.
You should have said it louder.
Louder. Right. Find blame.
So not all dendritic growth, results in the dramatic smoke show, right? I mean, sometimes it's better if it does. More of a subtle killer, right?
It's better if it does. If it goes poof, then you go, oh man, I got a problem, and you fix it. The silent killer is calf, and calf is not a cleaning issue. Calf has a lot of issues. It's the laminate issue. It's just when this particular OEM gave their statement of work to the CM, they said, look, we want you to procure the boards as well. Here's the Gerbers, all that. Get the boards made. And on the statement of work, the material selection for the boards, and I quote, I'm not exaggerating, down and dirty FR4, nothing special.
Wow.
I, in my lawyerly capacity as an expert witness, I researched all the slash sheets I can find on IPC. I could not find down and dirty. I could not find, nothing special. Not listed.
FR4 TG 130. That's what that is.
Yeah. Down and dirty, nothing special. And it turns out there are more calf resistant materials out there. And calf can be caused by a number of ways, but that's not the point. The point is there was several things they could have done.
I'm trying to think
prevent it. And
on the board fab side, like what would cause that? Because you're running your inner layers through some pretty aggressive cleaners, and your outer layers, once it's pressed together,
here's where. Okay, you're a board guy, so you get this, right, Sean? Drilling damage, dull drills, or you got a hot date on Friday night and you're pushing those drills hard, right? And you get these little micro cracks in the vias. You're drilling all the vias and drills, and you're pushing too hard. Drills are dull. You're desperate to get out. You get these little micro cracks. What do you do after you drill?
You
plate the holes. You plate the barrels.
Yeah.
What do you use to plate the barrels? Plating solution. It goes down the barrel. into these little micro cracks. The other issue is if the laminate is bad, you get this phenomenon called dry weave, where there's little gaps in the laminate. It just doesn't interlace the way it's supposed to. That can also be caused by multiple thermal excursions later. It's a crazy process. It can happen. But the irony in this whole thing is if they baked the boards prior to potting, there would not have been a calf issue because they would have baked out the moisture. Whether it's calf, which is subterranean, or typical ECM dendritic growth, which is on the surface, it's the same phenomenon. They just, ironically, they grow the different direction. One grows from anode to cathode, one grows from cathode to anode, but it doesn't matter. If they had baked the board, they would have taken away one of the pillars, moisture. They could have had tons of conductive solution in it. They could have had a whole bunch of cracks, which is the pathway. But without the moisture, they would not have grown a dendrite. It would not have had a calf effect. And they allowed the moisture to stay. And
because you can live with two of them, cracks. Right?
You can live with any two. Any two. In fact, the best solution.
You can have ionic contamination as long as you don't have
the easiest
moisture,
solution the easiest solution to prevent all this is just tell your customer don't turn it on. Keep the bias out of it.
Perfect. No problem.
That works across. I mean, it's guaranteed. That works. It's the most effective solution. Not very practical, but it is the most effective solution.
What are you doing? Turning this on, dude? Are you crazy?
Oh, it's your fault. You turned it on. Voided the warranty. Yes.
Hawaii's nice and all that. By the way, I must say your videos you did for your intros and promoting PanPac are phenomenal. By the way,
they were great.
As a video guy, every one of them. I was like, man, this is so professional, so nice. But
that's why Daniel went. He wasn't going to go, and then he watched one of those videos and booked right away.
I seduced them. Yes, my videos seduced them to coming.
You started last year a new podcast, and I'm curious how that's going for you.
Oh my God, it's an airplane flying over Daniel right now.
Yeah,
you and I must be at different ends of the resort because I'm in the resort where airplanes aren't allowed to fly over. I'm in that part of it. The high rent district. Okay, it's gone. It's called the Reluctant Entrepreneur Podcast, and it's an entrepreneur-based podcast. So I interview company founders, inventors, entrepreneurs of various sorts on their journey, and I break each episode down into two segments. The first segment is their journey, every bonehead mistake they've ever made, every business near-death experience they've ever had, how they overcome failure, where do they get the grit and the persistence and the determination to get going? What have they learned from their mistakes? All of that. And then the second segment of the show is advice based on their level of expertise. So if I'm interviewing a intellectual property attorney, a trademark attorney, patent attorney, we'll talk about their journey, all the bonehead mistakes they made, all that, what they've learned. And then we talk about protecting your IP best practices and all that. That's the way it normally goes. And I love doing that because here's the thing with entrepreneurs. And okay, Elias, I'm throwing you in the entrepreneur boat because you're running your family's business, which by the way is extra pressure because you have one job. Don't mess this up. Yeah. Sean, you're kind of running a family business and you have one job. Don't mess it up. Daniel, you're very entrepreneurial. You may not own the business, but you run it like it's yours. So I'm kind of talking to three entrepreneurs here. But
before he got into PCBA, before he got into PCBA, he owned his own painting company.
Painting company, yeah. No, he's had side hustles forever. So he's very entrepreneurial. But my family and my friends have, and I've scientifically tested this, they have an 82-second attention span on my business stories. They're not interested. How was work today? I view how was work today.
Let me tell you.
A query. It's not meant to have an answer. It's the answer that is expected is
good.
Fine.
Good.
Yeah.
Fine. How was your day? But they've heard it all before. They're not interested. I get that. If you go to the VFW, go to the Veterans of Foreign War lodge. Sit down with a couple of World War II vets. They will talk for hours over their foxhole stories or trench warfare stories, and they're interested and they're interesting to each other. Entrepreneurs are the same way. Business owners are the same way. All of us can talk forever, almost like playing poker. Oh, yeah? I got something better. I'll raise you. You know, I mean, we have stories that trump all of our stories, and we find it interesting. And outside of that world, no one's interested. So I think a lot of entrepreneurs, like I did, was really rough on myself. Like I think I'm a smart guy. I got all the tech down. I started a company in the electronics manufacturing space. I can't be stupid, but I knew nothing about business. And the mistakes I made, it really affected my self-esteem. I'm like, oh, I must be stupid. I know this, but I'm bonehead on that. And then as I started talking to more entrepreneurs, I realized, oh my God, they made the same mistakes. You ever watch a golf tournament and watch like Tiger Woods in the sand trap? I feel so good. I'm like, oh my God, I'm like Tiger. He's like me. I've golfed in the sand trap before. I've been behind the tree. I've hit it into the rough. I've spent 20 minutes looking for a ball. And he has too. No, he doesn't do it very often. But there's misery loves company. And when entrepreneurs get together and share their journey, highs and lows, we appreciate it. And then I started to realize all the mistakes I made were the same mistakes Steve Jobs, Bill Gates, Elon Musk, Thomas Edison, Nikola Tesla, they all made those same mistakes. Different manifestation, but same causation.
And beyond that, they probably all also have a partner at home who has no interest in what they're talking about. So when they meet another entrepreneur who's interested 100%. In their stories, they're like, let me tell you
more. Yes, exactly. I got a story for you.
Not my wife. That's all she wants to do is hear about my work. Yeah, she's
really well. Yeah. You're very fortunate. I'll say fortunate. It could go either way, but I'm going to go with the fortunate side.
You know,
so the whole idea of the show is to let other people who are maybe thinking about stepping their foot into the entrepreneur world
to scare the hell out of them so they don't.
Part of it is to de-romanticize it, because it's not what people think.
It's not.
And the other is to prepare. Like, it's the toughest thing you're ever going to do. It's like boot camp. It's going to break you, and it's going to rebuild you into someone different. Everybody goes through that. But I would do it again in a heartbeat. I would do it again tomorrow. So it's totally worth it, and it's hard.
One of the best things you taught me, I don't even know if you taught me, you just kind of shared your experience, really. I was struggling last year for sales really bad, and I called you. I called everybody I knew, asking everybody for work. And you said you found that you would put effort into sales, right? And you'd go on this cycle of sales, and then build, and then sales. But you felt like the more effort you put into sales, even if it didn't result in sales from that area, it eventually came in, right? And it was weird, because that was my exact experience last year. I think where I put my effort in sales, I probably got maybe one job, maybe two jobs from it, but sales ended up coming in. And it was just weird, because the whole time this is happening, I'm like, wow, it's going up, but it's not in these areas. But I'm putting out this effort, and like you were talking about, you put it out there and then it comes back, right? And that was huge for me to like.
So you boys have probably, I'm guessing, unless you went to like an amusement park, you've probably never been on a steam train. But steam trains, back in the early days of trains in this country, in every country, they were run on steam. So there would be two, in addition to the porters and the servers working in the cars, up front in the locomotive, there'd be two employees. The engineer who drove the train and the fireman who shoveled coal into the furnace. So to me, every time you work on sales, every time you write a paper, every time you create a video, every time you provide valuable content, not talking about your product specifically, just like you guys do every day, you post valuable content. You post problems you've overcome in stencils and assembly and all this. When you do that, that's a lump of coal into the furnace. And it takes energy for a steam train to work. You have to start with energy. So in this case, energy is in the form of coal. Coal burns, boils water. The boiled water turns to steam. The steam runs the engine. I don't know which lump of coal propelled my train from mile 1 to mile 2. My job as a business owner is shovel coal into that furnace. Just keep shoveling coal. Some loads of coal have more energy density than others, if we want to get engineering kind of all on you. Some are way more effective than others. Some don't burn that well, but they still take the train down the track. And you learn what it is. But I did learn that something that was completely counterintuitive. If you want to sell your product or your service, stop talking about your product or your service.
Yeah, sure.
Like, what the hell are you saying? What do you mean stop talking about my product? Are you crazy? Yeah, 100%. Instead, create value, educate, become, and I hate this word because it's been infiltrated by others, but become an influencer,
No,
an
Sean loves the word.
authority-based influencer. Yeah, but there's two influencers. There's a TikTok popular, celebrity influencer, and that does work. But I'm talking about for the mere mortals, even Sean, is become an authority-based influencer. Don't have a horse. Don't be perceived to have a horse in the race. Just provide content that's valuable, not twerky content, but valuable content. And all of a sudden, people trust you. All of a sudden, you're not trying to like constantly whack-a-mole them over the head trying to get an order. And to me, the only way I can understand it and explain it, it's shoveling coal into the furnace of your train, your business. And it moves the train down the track miraculously. It's just energy. It's just positive energy. And the more you do that, the more your train moves down the track, which means the more sales you get, the more revenue you get, the more profitable you get, and the better customer you get. I learned that the hard way. When we were braggadocious advertisers, we were terrible. I'm trying really hard not to swear right now, but we were terrible advertisers. We were braggadocious. We were chest thumping. Our ads came one syllable short of saying we're the best and they all suck. It was terrible. And when we did trade shows, we had magicians in the booth, waterfalls in the booth, video games in the booth. We were high-tech carnies. Look at us, look at us, look at us. And one year...
Guys, cancel the magicians. Cancel the magicians.
We did. Cancel the magicians. One year I had a waterfall in the booth that was 30 feet wide, 16 feet tall, and it had 3,000 nozzles on the top. And instead of dropping sheets of water, it turned off and on the nozzles like a giant inkjet printer, and it dropped words and images. It was the coolest thing I've ever seen. And it cost me $70,000 to rent it for 3 days. Wow. $70,000 to rent it. I feel like swearing again. $70,000 to rent it. And I felt good the first morning because someone came up and they went, "Oh my God, I can't believe what I'm seeing. That is absolutely amazing. Would you mind if I take a picture of it and show my team?" And I'm just like, "Good job, Mike. Yeah, this is good. This is going to be a great show." And then he says, "Hey, I noticed your equipment's on wheels. Is there any way you could move your equipment out of the way?"
Oh, no. Oh, no.
Sean, Daniel, Elias, a 2x4 in the face. And I'm just like, what the living hell am I doing? I don't make waterfalls. What am I doing? And that day was the last show we did for 8 years. I canceled all my ad contracts. We were aggressive advertisers, all the banner ads, all the print ads back in the day, canceled them all. And we substituted it with, okay, instead of going to I always call it upstairs, downstairs at trade shows. Trade shows are great. I love trade shows. But I was always downstairs on the show floor. What fools are going upstairs into the conferences? All the action's down here. I decided, okay, I'm not going to go downstairs. I'm just going to go upstairs. I'm going to start being the guy on the podium at the lectern. I'm going to teach. I'm going to start a webinar series back before the webinar term was even out. webatorials or whatever they used to call them. I'm going to start writing technical papers. I'm going to start volunteering with our trade associations. I'm going to start producing live workshops around the country, totally non-commercial, just on best practices. Eventually, I'm going to start a podcast. We have not run an ad in probably 12 years. Not one. Not even a little one. And
what I like too,
this
Mike,
is
was
good.
this one time where you were, I don't even know when, but you're talking about your old advertising techniques, and you're saying like, oh, we have a 5 horsepower motor and they have a 2 horsepower motor, and you're like, nobody cares about that, right? Like,
no one cares, Sean. No one gives a crap about it. I'm filtering myself still. No one gives a crap about that because A, they don't care, and B, there's no point of reference. They don't know why their boards are failing. They don't know there's contamination on the board. All they know is they bought a no clean flux, which they translated in their mind as don't clean flux, and they're following the label instructions perfectly. There should not be a problem. They don't know why the problem is. For me to talk about CFM and wattage and horsepower and diffusion angles and particle sizes means I'm just talking Greek to someone who doesn't speak Greek.
I recall
blah blah blah.
I recall the first time I heard you speak about exactly what you're talking about now. And I think it was like a Nike shoe is what you used for an example. And it's like, you don't watch a shoe commercial and they don't talk about it's, this quality rubber and has this hardness and it, has this much spring to it. It's, there, you don't see any of that. And that really resonated with me because it was just like, yeah, that is true. Like any commercials you see that are effective, that you remember a product, there's very little, if anything, said about the product, really. From a
real
technical
quick, I know we're probably running out of time, and but this is a true story. So in the 30s and 40s, 1930s or 40s, Coca Cola reached out to their ad agency and said, you know what, we're selling a lot of Coca Cola in the summertime because it's refreshing and all that, but our sales during the winter just tank. What can you do for us? So the ad agency came back with this campaign. Now, back in those days, there was not one universal depiction of what Santa Claus looked like. Santa Claus didn't look like the Santa Claus we know today. In some illustrations of Santa Claus, he looked like a pedophile, like an anorexic pedophile. He looked creepy. And others were based on St. Nicholas, who also looked like you would hold your kids closer if St. Nicholas walked by, at least, portraits of him. So they said, no, we want to correlate Santa Claus and Christmas and Coca-Cola. So they came up with a version of Santa that was not mainstream at all. They kind of created it. What color was Santa's suit?
Red. Like the can.
Red. Coca-Cola red. They decided they're going to make it Coca-Cola red. And they had pictures during the holidays of Santa holding, sitting on a chair, coming down a chimney, a bit out of breath, rosy red cheeks, overweight, probably a diabetic Santa, holding a glass of Coke with condensation coming down the sides. And before that ad campaign, what was the most popular holiday in the United States? By far, not even close.
What, 4th of July?
I'll tell you, it's
Thanksgiving?
Easter.
I was
Easter.
Okay.
Easter. Christmas was not that. I mean, Christmas was popular, but it was not like the top of the list. What's the most popular holiday today in the United States?
Christmas, by
question.
By
exponentially.
Not even, exactly. Not even close. So if Pepsi had come up with that idea before Coke, we'd be sending our kids to sit on Santa Claus's lap wearing his blue suit. Think about it.
Yeah.
So I coined that as, well, I like to call it conscious marketing. It's making an emotional connection, providing value, becoming an authority-based influencer, and allowing the sales gods to send business your way. If you try and get business, if you're just, I need to get like 10 sales today, you know what? You'll get 10 sales today. And none of them will be good sales. You'll attract toxic customers and they'll be unprofitable sales, but you'll get your 10 sales. If you just work on making great decisions, providing value and win-win situations for your industry, the sales will come. And not only will they come, they'll come in record numbers, and the quality of customer you get will be absolutely golden. They'll be like partners. You'll go from transactional to relational overnight. And that's what I discovered. Now, I don't think that's unique to me. Other companies, like you mentioned, Elias, Nike, you'll never see a Nike ad that celebrates a shoe. You'll see a Nike ad that celebrates athleticism.
The way it makes you feel.
It just works. The way it makes you feel.
And they're selling their product at a premium price, right? I mean, it's so, like you said,
the Jordans, man. There you go. That's the same color. That's the same color, Sean, as a Coca Cola bottle.
He's trying to rebrand Santa in his
my
Metal
favorite
Edge.
post Elias has ever done.
Oh, that's Elias Santa. Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah, with the stencil.
I see it now.
With the stencil
he's trying
sled.
to take over Coca Cola.
Riding a stencil sleigh. That's amazing. I remember seeing that back at the holidays. That was great. But yeah, I mean, those are things I just kind of picked up along the way after 33 years of managing not to kill my business. You know, it's things I picked up along the way. It's the world according to Mike. I don't know if it'll work for everyone else, but it's worked for us.
I was going to say, I can test that. A lot of, the lessons that you've been generous enough to share with us, I know that we've all kind of put some of those to practice in different ways. And I know personally they work. So if you make or sell stencils for a living, do not listen to anything Mike said. That's mine and mine alone.
That's copyright Elias. That's right. Yeah. He's the original obnoxious, braggadocious, twerky advertiser. No, you're not. No, you guys have done things the way I like to see it. You're about providing value, and your podcast, this podcast that I'm on right now, Decode, provides value. You have not mentioned, besides your intro, Daniel, you haven't looked for contract assembly business. Sean, you haven't either. Elias, you haven't said, call now, operator standing by. Here's a coupon code, for 20% off your next stencil.
You can.
Don't give them an idea.
You're totally welcome to. They would love it. But the point is, you don't lead with that. It's not part of your show. Your show is to provide advice to the industry based on subject matter experts and even me.
I think we're all just
provide that advice.
We're all here to learn from guests like you, to be honest with you. Why would I waste my time trying to speak about it's like, I don't know about Elias, but, or Daniel, but my dad is always like, why don't you put K&F in the background or something like that? Or show your business cards, put the fax line on there, right? He's just like, what are you doing, dude? Wow. But I enjoy this,
My generation's dying out. We're not going to be around for much longer. We're just going to be on a beach, drinking cocktails and smoking cigars. At least I will.
In 10 minutes.
In 5. 10 more minutes? Is it 10 more minutes? I thought we were there already. No, but your generation, people will say, and I've said this on your show before, actually, but you become your grandfather when you start a sentence with kids these days, but I'll do it anyway. Kids these days, our generation will say, you guys are constantly have your head in phones. You're always looking at the screen, which, okay, maybe true. But part of what you're doing is researching solutions to what your issues at the moment, whether work or personal or whatever. Your generation does not read ads. No ad reaches you. Your brain you don't even look at it. Your brain filters it out. But you do look online for people like yourselves that you can trust, that have been there and can give you advice. They're not looking to sell stuff. They're just like advice. That's how I learned the tech side of podcasting. I was educated on the tech side of podcasting by 11-year-old Indian kids. That like, oh my God, is this all? I'm like, I'm not going to listen to these kids. They knew what they were talking about. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to do it. And now, first people I'll go to, these kids. But the point I'm making is all of you have become influencers through this medium and others. And if you put that first, business takes care of itself. If you put business first and you start shilling your business and you're just like, people see through that. And then you're no longer an influencer. You're just another sales guy with a video camera. So, but I think you guys are doing a really good job at threading that needle, walking that line.
Well, we always like to end whenever the moment a guest compliments us, we usually just kill it and call it a good ending. So
before they go, but
that's right. And you talked about business and pleasure. You and I have both been delaying our pleasure by doing this episode at all. So I think probably it's as good a time as any to call it and enjoy the time we have left here. And the rest of you guys, I guess I'm just sorry. But thank you, Mike, for your time, and thank you for joining us as always.
I can feel the envy. There we go. There we go. I can feel the envy coming through the internet right here. Totally. The reluctant entrepreneur. Right. Wow. Tell me more, Sean. How has that changed your life?
Chapter 2, coming to America, baby.
Coming to America. That's my parents' journey. My parents were both immigrants, and they literally got on a steamship from England and came over to New York. Yeah, interesting journey.
Your father was picked up by the German army on his way home from school?
Yeah, at 16. He was...
You would not see his mother again for 38 years? Is this real?
Yeah, there were two groups of unfortunate people in that environment. The Jewish people who were put in a certain type of camp that was kind of a one-way ticket. And then the non-Jews, the Poles. And they were put in labor camps to build stuff for the German army to help the war effort. And my dad was in the latter of the two camps and escaped and joined the British Army and served the rest of the war in a Polish unit of the British Army, which is ripe for jokes, Polish jokes. But he ended up, when the war was over, it was like musical chairs. The music stopped. He happened to be in Scotland. My mother, who is Scottish, was working as a civil servant at Edinburgh Castle. They met, they fell in love, they got married, they came to the United States. So that's their journey. Short version of a long story.
Well, where can somebody find the Reluctant Entrepreneur book in case they want the rest of the story and some more about your kind of path into business and the experiences you've had and all that? Where can they find you?
Yeah. Well, you can find it on Amazon. So The Reluctant Entrepreneur on Amazon. There's a few books by the exact same title for some reason, but just look for me. You'll see it. It's available in paperback and Kindle and an audio book, which I narrated it.
Is that why you had the IP guy on your podcast so that way you could find out how to sue the people who took your title?
It turned out book titles, Amazon has a policy. You cannot title a book that's trademarked. If you have a trademark, you can't name your book the trademark. I think most publishers have that rule because they don't want any trouble, right, later on. So book titles are generally never trademarked. So there could be, just like songs. You could have 20 songs that are called Shake It Up or Shake It Off or whatever Taylor Swift song is. Here Comes the Sun from the Beatles, or Three Dog Night, Jeremiah was a bullfrog. But you can have duplicate titles. You can't stop that. The songs can't be the same. Lyrics can't be the same, but you can copy titles. Same with books. So there's a few out there, but if you're interested in starting a business someday, this does not benefit me at all. If you're interested in starting a business someday, go to the Reluctant Entrepreneur podcast. It's on YouTube and all the podcast channels. It's not a commercial show. It's no sponsors, nothing, but it's just interviews with people like yourself on how you started your business and all the bonehead mistakes you've made and best advice for people who are thinking about starting a business. So I'll end there.
Before we go, though, I want to just make sure that we take a moment to say thank you to the SMTA for throwing such a great event. Thank you, Mike, for being a great chair. As a first-time participant, first time here, I just can't imagine how it could be any better. I highly recommend. So hopefully we're all here next year getting to do one of these in person, right?
It'll be on Maui next year. Nice. You know what they say, here today, gone to Maui. Bada bing. That's my second
Mike.
act. Tip your waiter.
And thank you. Thank you to the audience for listening along or watching, however you do. Make sure to follow us on YouTube and LinkedIn, and hopefully we see you next time.